Hi everybody, my name is Anastasia. I'm Slavic, Ukrainian in particular. I speak 3 Slavic languages and I'm learning my 4th now, which is why I was basically inspired to create this video, a guide to Slavic languages. So if you're confused about what Slavic languages are or just want to learn more about them, you're at the right place. I've done a thorough research and I've been working on this video so hard, so please don't forget to support it with your like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Slavic refers to a linguistic and cultural group within the Indo-European family, encompassing the languages, people, and cultures originated in the Central Europe, Eastern Europe, some areas of Balkans, and Northern Asia. The term Slavic traces back to Proto-Slavic people, an ancient group thought to have originated near modern-day Ukraine and Belarus in the early 1st millennium. While Slavic encompasses a wide range of cultures and histories, some common themes include rich folklore and traditions, including dances, music, and storytelling, strong family and community ties often emphasized in traditional Slavic societies, diverse cuisine featuring hearty dishes like borscht, pierogi, and goulash, distinctive architecture from the onion domes of the Russian Orthodox churches to the medieval castles of Poland and Czech Republic. But we're going to talk about languages specifically. I'm not going to go deep into the history, rather talk about what it is like today. So, Slavic languages are part of the Indo-European family and can be divided into 3 main groups: Eastern, Western, and Southern Slavic languages. Each group has unique characteristics while also sharing common roots, so let me break them down for you. The first group is Eastern Slavic, which includes Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian. The second group is Western Slavic, which includes Polish, Czech, and Slovak. And the third group is Southern Slavic languages, which includes Croatian, Bosnian, Serbian, Montenegrin, Macedonian, Bulgarian, and Slovenian. Now let's explore each group deeper and start with Eastern Slavic languages. Eastern Slavic languages are closely related, and if you know one, you can easily understand the basics of another. They all use the Cyrillic alphabet, though with slight variations, and they share a lot of vocabulary. But I can't stress this enough, they are not the same languages. If you speak just one, you are not going to magically start speaking and understand another one. They are not mutually intelligible without prior exposure. Yes, they are similar and you may understand some basics, but you are going to struggle with complex conversations. I just want to emphasize this because this is a common misconception. When I say I speak both Russian and Ukrainian, some people are like, oh, but this is the same language, and it's the same as saying, oh, Italian and Spanish are the same languages, or Dutch and German are the same languages. Italian and Spanish share more similarities and are closer to each other than Russian and Ukrainian, yet nobody calls them the same language. So my point is, Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian are 3 different languages, and we're going to explore each one in particular. Let's start with Russian, one of my native languages. Russian is the most widely spoken Slavic language with 150 million native speakers and around 260 million speakers worldwide. It is an official language of Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and several international organizations, including the United Nations. Russian is also one of the 2 official languages in the International Space Station. Astronauts are usually required to be proficient in both English and Russian in order to facilitate seamless communication. Russian uses the Cyrillic alphabet, which has 33 letters and has 6 grammatical cases, which makes its grammar quite complex. There is a common stereotype that Russian sounds cold or harsh, but that's not true. It's incredibly poetic, especially in literature and songs. In fact, Russian is the language of some of the world's greatest literature works, including Leo Tolstoy with his War and Peace, Fyodor Dostoevsky with his Crime and Punishment, and Anton Chekhov, which left an incredible mark in the history of literature.
Русский язык неисчерпаемо богат и все обогащается с быстротой поражающей. Максим Горький.
Now let's move to Ukrainian, which is my second native language and which is often considered one of the most melodic languages in the world alongside Italian, which is due to its phonetic structure, vowel harmony, and soft sounds. It is often called the language of song because of its long-standing tradition for lyrical poetry and folk songs. Many of these songs have been preserved and celebrated for its emotional depth and cultural significance. For example, the world-famous Christmas song, Carol of the Bells, was originally a Ukrainian folk song called Щедрик and composed by Mykola Leontovich. Ukrainian also uses the Cyrillic alphabet with 33 letters, which is similar to Russian and Ukrainian, but it has some unique letters, which includes the letter G, for example, which is absent in Russian. It has 7 grammatical cases, which also makes its grammar quite complicated to learn. Today, Ukrainian is the official language of Ukraine and is spoken by over 40 million people, making it the third most spoken language, Slavic language, after Russian and Polish. And while many Ukrainians are bilinguals and speak both Russian and Ukrainian, the younger generations are increasingly favorite Ukrainian as their primary language. Ukraine has also produced some world-famous writers whose impact is huge on literature, culture, and history. For example, Taras Shevchenko, who is known as the national poet of Ukraine with his Kobzar, which is a collection of poems, or Mykola Gogol. Gogol is often associated with Russian literature because he wrote in Russian, but his works are infused with Ukrainian themes, culture, and humor, and he has Ukrainian roots. But now I want to move to one fascinating and unique linguistic phenomenon, which is called Surjik. Surjik is not a language in its official form, but rather a mix of Russian and Ukrainian, shaped by historical, social, and cultural events. The word Surjik originally refers to a mix of grains like wheat and rye, which mirrors the linguistic mix. Surjik is predominantly spoken in central and eastern Ukraine, as well as in some rural areas where the boundaries between Ukrainian and Russian have historically been blurred. Surjik is often viewed as uneducated or incorrect because it deviates of the standard of Ukrainian or Russian, but because linguistic diversity gains more appreciation recently, this is changing. For many, Surjik is a natural and efficient way to communicate in the environments where both Ukrainian and Russian are spoken and understood. Surjik is sometimes used in TV shows and movies to represent certain characters. For example, a comedic persona Verka Serdyuchka often uses Surjik for humor and relatability.
Расскажу историю. Я пыталась ее записать в эту книжку, у меня ничего не получилось, потому что я ей по-разному рассказываю и выдумываю, постоянно придумываю.
To understand it better, Surjik can be compared to Spanglish, a mix of Spanish and English. Now let's move to our third language in the group, which is Belarusian. Belarusian is the official language of Belarus alongside Russian. Belarusian shares similarities with both Russian and Ukrainian, but has a distinct charm. It also uses the Cyrillic alphabet, but like Ukrainian, it has distinct letters which do not appear in Ukrainian or Russian language, for example, short U letter. Belarusian has been recognized as one of the vulnerable or endangered languages by UNESCO. While it is one of the Belarus's official languages, its use has decreased in favor of Russian. However, there are ongoing efforts to revive and promote this language. Belarusian is often described as a bridge language between Eastern and Western Slavic languages. Its vocabulary have been influenced by Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish, showing its unique position in Europe. Belarusian also has 7 grammatical cases, which makes its grammar quite complicated to learn. In recent years, there's been a huge interest in Belarusian, particularly among younger generations, who see it as a way to connect with their roots and assert their cultural independence. It's been used in modern music, literature, and online content, and people are actively promoting it on social media platforms.
Мы не будем распавядаць вам пра тое, што беларуская мова ўзнікла натуральна і мае багатую гісторыю, што яшчэ зусім нядаўна на ёй размаўляла абсалютная большасць насельніцтва нашай краіны.
Belarus has also produced a number of internationally recognized figures in literature, arts, and science. For example, Svetlana Alexievich, Nobel Prize-winning writer and journalist for her famous works Voices from Chernobyl and The Unwomanly Face of War. Another language I want to mention from the East Slavic languages group is Rusin. Rusin is a minority language which is spoken by Rusins, people who reside in the Carpathian Mountains region of Central and Eastern Europe. It is closely related to Ukrainian and Belarusian, but distinct enough to be considered a separate language by many linguists. Rusins identify as a distinct ethnic group separate from Ukrainians, Poles, Russians, or anyone else. However, this is sometimes disputed, particularly in Ukraine, where some people consider it just a dialect of Ukrainian. As mentioned earlier, Rusin is spoken in the Carpathian Mountain region, which spans several countries. Rusin also has several regional varieties, often referred to as dialects, but sometimes they're distinct enough to be considered different languages. These include two: Carpato-Rusin, spoken in Slovakia, Ukraine, and Poland, and Pannonian Rusin, spoken in Serbia and Croatia.
Słuchate Rusin FM, wasze rusynské radio.
Vážení i milí sluchači Radia Rusin FM, vítam vás pri sluchaniu.
And with this, I want to move to our second group today, which is Western Slavic languages. Western Slavic languages are different from Eastern Slavic languages, first of all because they use the Latin alphabet. And while Western Slavic languages may look similar on paper, they have their own peculiarities. Let's start with the first language, which is Polish, the language I'm currently learning. Polish is the second most spoken Slavic language after Russian and has over 45 million native speakers worldwide. It is the official language of Poland. Polish is known for its challenging consonant clusters and tongue twisters. Here is a famous one.
W Szczebrzeszynie chrząszcz brzmi w trzcinie i Szczebrzeszyn z tego słynie.
Polish has 7 grammatical cases, and while Standard Polish is widely spoken, it also has several dialects. For example, Silesian, which is a mix of German, Polish, and Czech influences, and which is often considered a separate language by many linguists. And Kashubian, which is also recognized as a separate language with its own grammar and vocabulary. It includes influences from German and Old Prussian. Standard Polish is primarily based on the Masovian dialect, with some features borrowed from Lesser and Greater Polish. Many Poles mix dialects and Standard Polish in everyday speech, especially in rural areas or family settings, which creates a unique blend of language that reflects regional identity. People often joke that Polish sound like a never-ending string of sh and chi sounds, and Polish is often labeled as one of the hardest languages to learn due to its complicated grammar and tongue-twisting pronunciation. In reality, while Polish grammar and pronunciation can be challenging, it's no more impossible than other complicated languages like Finnish or Chinese. And learners who put an effort often describe Polish as incredibly beautiful and rewarding, just like me. The Polish language has also been remarkable for its contributions in the world literature, culture, and art. For example, Adam Mickiewicz, known for his famous works Pan Tadeusz and Daddy.
Razem z wami napiszemy nasz pierwszy egzamin z języka polskiego. Chcemy wam o nim trochę opowiedzieć.
Now let's move to the next language in the group, which is Czech. Czech has a unique rhythm that sets it apart. Czech is the official language of the Czech Republic, with around 11 million speakers worldwide. Czech has a very regular spelling system, meaning the words are pronounced exactly the same way they are written. So once you learn the rules, reading Czech becomes really straightforward compared to English or French. Czech and Slovak are mutually intelligible, meaning the speakers of one can understand the speakers of another without much effort. This stems from the country's shared history as Czechoslovakia. Czech has 7 grammatical cases, which makes its grammar also not an easy one to learn. Czech is the language of legendary writers like Franz Kafka, although he often wrote in German, and Karel Čapek, who coined the word robot. Czech has three main dialect groups: Bohemian, the base of Standard Czech; Moravian, known for softer intonation and different vocabulary; and Silesian, which is considered a West Slavic language variety, closely related to Polish and Czech. As we know already, Silesian is often considered a separate language, but linguists are still debating whether it's a dialect of Polish, a separate language, or a transitional dialect between Polish and Czech. While Standard Czech is used in formal context, regional dialects are alive and well in everyday speech.
Witamy w Czechach. Czeski film to kolejna opowieść z serii Travel Fan w podróży.
Now let's move to the next language in the group, which is Slovak. Slovak is often described as a bridge between Czech and Polish, and it is easier for Poles to understand than Czech because it shares some similar vocabulary with Slovak. Slovak also has three main dialect groups reflecting its regional diversity. Each dialect group has its own pronunciation quirks and vocabulary, making Slovak really varied. Slovak has 6 grammatical cases and is spoken by 5.5 people in Slovakia and 2 million people in the Slovak communities around the world. Slovak rhythmic and melodic nature makes it ideal for poetry. For example, Pavol Oršák Hviezdoslav, I hope I pronounced it correctly, one of Slovakia's most celebrated poets. Also, the Fujara flute, which is a Slovak's shepherd flute, a UNESCO-recognized cultural heritage. This flute is known for its deep melodic tones. Now, if you thought it was it for West Slavic languages, I want to talk about another one, the Serbian language, which is a lesser known but fascinating member of the West Slavic language family. This language is closely related to Polish, Czech and Slovak and is spoken by Serbs, a Slavic ethnic group who lives in the eastern Germany. Serbian is not a single language but comprises two distinct languages: Upper Serbian, which is closer to Czech, and Lower Serbian, which is closer to Polish. Both languages are mutually intelligible to some extent, but are distinct enough to be considered separate. Both Upper and Lower Serbian are considered endangered languages due to its declining number of speakers, especially among younger generations. Now, with this, let's move to our last group, which is Southern Slavic languages, the most diverse group, which uses both Cyrillic and Latin alphabets. And here I want to start with Serbo-Croatian as a whole. Serbian, Bosnian, Croatian and Montenegrin are considered separate languages due to cultural and political reasons, but they are largely mutually intelligible, meaning the speakers of one can easily understand the speakers of another with some regional vocabulary and pronunciation differences. Serbo-Croatian is unique in using both Cyrillic and Latin alphabets. Latin is used in Croatia and Bosnia, and Cyrillic is used in Serbia, but it coexists with Latin. Montenegrins and Bosnians are mostly using the Latin script, but Montenegrins can use Cyrillics as well. The language is traditionally divided into dialects based on the word for what. The first dialect is Shtokavian with the word što for what, and this is the basis of the standard form of Serbian, Croatian and Bosnian. The second dialect is Čekavian with the word ča for what, and it's spoken in the coastal region of Croatia. And the third dialect is Kajkavian with the word kaj for what, and it is predominantly spoken in the northern Croatia, closer to Slovenia. Now let's look at each language in particular a little bit. Serbian. Serbia officially uses Cyrillic alphabet, but most of the people are fluent in both writings, Cyrillic and Latin. Businesses, social media, street signs mix the two of them, making Serbia one of the not so many countries where people constantly switch from one to another writing system. Due to the Ottoman Empire's influence, Serbian contains many Turkish loan words, especially in food and everyday life. Unlike Serbian, Croatian exclusively uses the Latin alphabet, making it closer to other Western European languages in terms of writing. Croatian tends to favor native Slavic words over loan words, however, its coastal line has been influenced by Italian a lot. Croatian literature dates back to the Middle Ages with authors like Marko Marulić, who is considered the father of the Croatian language. Bosnian also uses Latin, but has more loan words from Turkish, Arabic and Persian than Serbian or Croatian due to the Ottoman Empire's influence. Due to its historical presence in Bosnia, Bosnian reflects its multi-ethnic and multi-religious society. The vocabulary and idioms often reflect the Islamic, Christian and Jewish influences. And the last but not least here is Montenegrin. Montenegrin is considered a new language because it is the newest standard of the Serbo-Croatian family, which was officially codified after the Montenegro gained its independence in 2006. Montenegrin also introduced 2 additional letters to the alphabet, these 2 reflecting local pronunciation differences. Now let's move to the next South Slavic language, which is Slovenian. The Slovenian language is a fascinating Slavic language with unique features and cultural heritage. Slovenian is one of the very few languages in the world that fully preserved the dual form, meaning, apart from the singular and plural forms, they also have a dual form for 2 people or things. With only 2.5 million speakers worldwide and for such a small country, Slovenia has a fascinating number of dialects, which is over 40. To be more precise, I think 46 dialects. And some dialects are so distinct that some speakers of Slovenian from one region may find it hard to understand people from another one. Some say that Slovenian bridges the gap between West Slavic and South Slavic languages, making it a valuable key to learning other Slavic languages, meaning if you want to learn a lot of Slavic languages, you better start with Slovenian here. By the way, there is a common stereotype. Some people think that Slovenian sounds too soft to be Slavic.
Poslušate podcast Radia Ognjišče. Slovenci po svetu.
Slovenia also has some world-famous authors, for example, Ivan Cankar, who is often compared to Dostoevsky or Kafka for its psychological depth and social critique. Now let's move to the Bulgarian language. Bulgarian was the first Slavic language to be written, and Bulgaria is the birthplace of the Cyrillic alphabet, which is used in many other Slavic languages. It's now used by more than 250 million people worldwide, and it's used in languages like Ukrainian, Belarusian, Russian, Serbian, and of course Bulgarian. This language has several grammatical features that sets it apart from other Slavic languages. For example, there are no cases, which is quite different from other Slavic languages that have a lot of cases. Also, in Bulgarian language, there are definite articles, something we do not have in other Slavic languages. Because of the lack of cases and clear grammatical rules, Bulgarian is often considered easy to learn for the speakers of other Slavic languages. One of the most peculiar things about Bulgarian is their reverse gestures for yes and no. Nodding your head means no, and shaking your head means yes. This confuses foreigners all the time. Bulgarian and Macedonian are closely related, with Macedonian considered to be the most similar language to Bulgarian. And now let's move to this next language, which is Macedonian. Macedonian is primarily spoken in North Macedonia, and as we said, it's closely related to Bulgarian and also Serbian, but it has its own distinct identity. Macedonian, like Bulgarian, has lost its cases system, and it relies on prepositions to express grammatical relationships, which makes it easier to learn for speakers who are familiar with English or other non-Slavic languages. With over 30 regional dialects, Macedonian is incredibly diverse for a relatively small country. Macedonian is the language of the famous folk songs like Jovana Jovanke or Makedonsko Djevojče, which are loved across the Balkans. Now, if you thought it was it, I also want to mention one more language which is not really spoken but used for religious and formal purposes, and it is Church Slavonic. This is the language that became the liturgical language of the Orthodox Church in Slavic-speaking regions. Church Slavonic is often described as melodic, formal, and dignified, making it ideal for the liturgical purposes. It has a slower rhythm and solemn tone compared to modern Slavic languages.
Вначале сотвори Бог небо и землю. Земля же бе невидима и неустроена.
So, this was the last language for today. As you can see, Slavic languages are fascinating. Some of them are mutually intelligible, some are not. Some use the Latin, some Cyrillic, some both. So, they are incredibly interesting, and yeah, while speakers of one may understand certain words or phrases in other languages, usually you would have to learn each language specifically in order to communicate in this language. Even a simple phrase like I love you will sound differently. For example, I'm gonna say it in the languages I speak. In Russian it's Я тебя люблю. In Croatian it's Volim te. In Ukrainian Я тебе кохаю. And in Polish kocham cię. As you can see, 3 absolutely different phrases. So the same with the rest. Languages are different, beautiful, and incredibly interesting. I hope you found this video interesting and learned something new about the Slavic languages today. Let me know in the comments below which Slavic language you're the most interested in or which ones you already speak. Don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!